Hi everyone, Brad Porter here with my weekly Sunday update. I've gotten about a request to talk more about a robot and really what it takes to make things work in the field. I've long thought that basically there are two ways to build really enduring businesses. One is to build a product and stumble on a money printing machine. And not that like building a product and stumbling on a money printing machine isn't hard, but if you can find a money printing machine, something where people just pay you over and over again, right? And I think, with AI, a number of these are popping up. And we hear like 100 million in ARR, we hear, big numbers coming out really, really quickly. The other way is to do something very hard. That is also valuable, but in some ways to kind of grind it out, right? And if you look at Amazon, right? Amazon went after retail, a low margin business, and they're going to do it with shipping, right? And shipping's expensive, and logistics and supply chain, and like it's a hard business. Now Amazon's so dominant, people are like, oh, they must have done anti-competitive. No, the reason no one was competing with Amazon was because it was too hard, right? Like for 18 years, no one bothered to try to compete with Amazon really in an aggressive way on the e-commerce side. And as a result, Amazon has built this really durable advantage, right? Uber, very similar, right? Let's go replace taxis, right, in cities and overcome those hurdles. Like you look at Kalshi right now of like, hey, we got to change the regulatory landscape around prediction markets, right? Those things are hard. And when you do them and you do something hard, the nice thing is that not that many people, Scale AI, same thing. Like data labeling on behalf of the most ambitious AI programs is hard work, right? And, Scale done an amazing job kind of sitting at the front of the data frontier and doing the hard work, right? So two strategies. One, stumble onto something that just prints money. If you can do that, that's a great way to build a very viable, enduring business. Otherwise, do something very hard that produces a lot of value. Now, the thing is, things that are hard sometimes take a little longer to scale up, but when they do, right? Electric cars, Tesla, SpaceX, right? These things are hard. Elon tends to take on very hard problems. So now, with very hard problems, you've got to be able to raise enough capital. You've got to have people with the expertise. You've got to have a strategy and approach to how are you actually going to get into the market, succeed, right? And so let's talk about robotics. Robotics is extremely hard, right? It's a systems discipline. You've got to bring a lot of robotic capability together, and you've got to get it in the field. And I think this is the piece that demo videos are easy. Guys, they're controlled, right? You can do 50 takes, right? I mean, sometimes I joke it's a little like those, kind of trick shot videos, right? Sure, I show the basketball dropping from the Hoover Dam and landing in a basketball hoop. Okay, but like if you're willing to spend 2 weeks shooting basketballs, like eventually maybe you get lucky, right? And not that robotics are just purely luck in these videos, but my point is like you want to do a week's worth of takes, do a week's worth of takes until you get one that looks great, right? In the field though, you don't get take after take after take after take to perform the task and get the work done. And so you've got to get out there and you've got to try things and you've got to learn things. So I want to show you a little bit the types of carts that we're moving around right now with Proxy and some of the just trickiness of this. So for instance, this cart over here is the type of cart that is used by Maersk, right? Now this one's interesting. It's painted yellow, right? If you have some kind of computer vision, you're thinking it's not going to be painted yellow. Some of them are painted, right? And they're all marked up. But if you look at this handlebar too, actually we had to bend this handlebar back out because it had been fully bent in. So it's a little hard to grip a handlebar that's like been collapsed, right? Now this is interesting because it has front casters but fixed rear casters. So if you're going to move this around to get it into a spot, you've got to do maybe a bit of a 3-point turn, right? So let me put this back. Now, this is the cart we move around at Mayo Clinic. Now, this is 4 independent casters, so it's interesting. You're kind of like attached to this, but it means you can move it sideways. Now, also, you know, Proxy has this, we call it Mobility 360, right? This ability to kind of swerve and slide. Well, that's important because look, this cart is loaded up to 1,500 pounds. It's a little bit of a beast to move, right? And if you think about if the casters are not in the right spot, like right now the casters are not in the right spot, and I'm pulling it to try to move it, right? Now, if I really get into it, I can give it force and I can get those casters to snap, right? But if you just have like 2 wheels on a robot, you can just twist, right? You can't slide. And so you can't get that side force that causes the casters to snap, right? And so, you know, various robots out there, it's a common pattern to do this 2-wheel thing. You think it's great, right? But then, you know, it kind of wobbles around. You need the side force. In fact, I was talking to another robotics leader who had studied, you know, they had done a lot of work on bimanual manipulators in production, and they had concluded that the mobility foundation, having very precise mobility in order to get into the right position for bimanual manipulation was actually far more critical, but they didn't realize that until they built it up, right? And so we see a lot of robots right now with, you know, with 2 arms, but they have 2 wheels, and they twist. And I don't know, I've not wanted to say this because I don't necessarily want them to change their architecture and realize that it's not going to work, but it's not going to work. But the point is, like, until you get in the field, right, until you're dealing with like reflections from the sunlight, right, the sun comes down at a certain time, or you know what, the humidity changed and it causes your sensors to fog up or something, right? You have to get out in the field and learn these lessons, and then to get 100% of the eligible carts means you have to solve all kinds of edge cases in, you know, how do you find the cart? How do you grip it? How do you, you know, we read the destination labels. This is the destination code. Usually it's actually written on a whiteboard tablet, right? This one's just written on paper. But then you've got to do the handwriting recognition. You've got to and you figure out that, oh, you know what? In these facilities, they use a lot of yellow and orange pens. Oh, let's get rid of the yellow and orange pens and bring in, you know. And so all of this is just a lot of detailed work to try to figure out what is it going to take to make this system really work. But the beauty of robotics, and you know, the same with Amazon and with Uber and with Scale and all of these hard businesses, right, is that you get a compounding advantage as you solve these problems, right? Because there's no shortcut usually to these hard problems, right? You have to just work your way through every one of them. And so if you do that efficiently and fast, you get better at it, right, than anybody else. And then if being better at it imbues into your system, right, where the robot's more hardened, the perception stack's more stable, more hardened, it's more robust to different lighting conditions. If you build all of that, then you've got this kind of durable advantage in the form of a product that, you know, sure, somebody could maybe build one that looks just like it, maybe has very, very similar specs, but until they've gone through the work of fixing everything that happens in hospitals and warehouses and manufacturing, you've got the advantage because you've built something up. And so that's my advice. If you can go find a money printing machine as a startup founder, go do that. Those are great, right? If you can't, pick something hard, hire a team that's motivated to solve really hard problems, right? Has the experience to do it. Make sure you can raise the capital that you need to do it, because this is going to be hard, and then just grind in a compounding way. And I think that's what it takes in robotics, and I think we're doing that at Cobot, and excited to keep doing it, and excited by the progress we're seeing, and so hopefully a little more insight into, you know, what it takes to get robotics working in the field. Thanks, everyone.